Welcome to the show. I'm Mitch Goldberg, and you are listening to Be the Boss of Your Money. And a couple things to talk about. Main thing is this: we had a pretty nice up day last Friday. Facebook on Friday was up over 20%, which for a company the size of Facebook is huge. I mean, if you think a stock from 10 to 12 is a big deal, yeah. A stock that goes from 20 to 24 in a day, it's a big deal, yeah, sure. But it's a company that's worth so much money and it goes up that much. That is remarkable. And today, Nvidia went up like $30 a share today after a huge run so far this year, and that stock is up. I checked, it's up over 30% already just this year after being up well over 240% last year. So things are continuing. Things are continuing to stay on a pretty good path, and we've seen highs in Costco, J.P. Morgan, other types of stocks besides technology as well. So, look, I mean, I was just talking to you about how a lot of people are saying that technology represents too big a portion of the stock market, that it's unsafe, it's unhealthy. And my answer to that is, as our economy becomes more tech centric, it becomes a bigger and bigger part of the economy. It only makes sense that that should be reflected in our stock market. Now, we will have those times when techs go down and other sectors go up, or all sectors go up and down, whatever. Sectors are always moving and often in different directions. So but I don't like this automatic tech is too big. I know what someone's going to say is that, well, what about the year 2000? Well, tech was too big. Valuations were crazy. But what happened after techs went down? They came right back up. They come right back up. It took a few years. We have to sort out who are the real leaders of the internet and semiconductor stocks, and a lot of technologies were coming and going. An awful lot of technologies were becoming obsolete very quickly. We used to have DSL, digital subscriber loop, and it was a big deal to have high-speed broadband access, which now it's like we only have high-speed broadband access. It's just faster, right? So a lot of things change, and that is the risk of investing in technology. But technology is a pretty big universe. There's semiconductor chips, there's software, but then there's the use cases. Like Facebook is predominantly a software company who's investing a lot of money into chips, but Facebook doesn't make chips, for example. Apple is both hardware and software. Microsoft is software. It depends. I guess I'm saying is that technology is not this one big monolithic sector. But it's not exactly what I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into more of like, why is the market down today, and why are interest rates going above 4% again on the 10-year Treasury? This is the important thing, because last year we were talking about how corporate earnings, big week for big tech earnings. It was a Fed meeting last week, and then you had the non-farm payroll figures, the employment report on Friday. And I said the employment report is very important because that tells you what the Fed's going to do over the next couple of months. Employment figures were blowout numbers, way higher than expected. The jobs market continues to show strength. So that's making interest rates go up, and it's questioning the it's really throwing into question the case that inflation is going to keep coming down and give the Fed ample room to start cutting rates. If employment stays strong, it's really hard to envision inflation coming down more. And this is why inflation came down a lot, but it kind of got stuck before it went to the next leg lower. And now that it's stuck, we could see why. Just a lot of people working, a lot of people are spending money. So I don't think it's any longer the Fed keeping rates as low as possible to keep, but still keeping inflation in check. I think the Fed now wants to keep inflation as high as possible while keeping inflation in check. Just a different mindset. And that is throwing into question this whole view that the Fed's going to be cutting rates a lot this year. I'm still sticking with my 3 rate cuts this year. I've been saying 2 or 3. But at this point, if the labor market doesn't really start to come in a little bit, meaning if it doesn't stop with these blowout numbers, we might not get any rate hikes. And if that's the case, then a lot of the reason to be buying stocks, especially in the fourth quarter of last year and up till now, start to go away. And then we start to get into a correction. I think that's a key word. And I think that's why the market, for the most part, went down today. So we'll take a look at these things. Let me just run a quick intro. I know it's fun. I'm running an intro 5 minutes into the show. But if you have any questions, please ask me in the comments, and we'll make this a quick one. Here we go. All right. Thank you for joining me again. I'm Mitch Goldberg. If you want to take this conversation with me to a one-on-one, you can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm all over, and let me put up my places where I am. Okay. Here it is. Look at that. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I'm gonna have to change this. I gave up on Twitter. It just became a cesspool of negativity and hate, and I just started to get sucked into it, and I was not really enjoying it. I was very early. I was like one of the original Twitterians. I was very early to the Twitter bandwagon, but it's no longer cool. It used to be like a really cool place to hang out and spend some time on it and meet people and talk to people, but now it's just like people shouting at each other. I'm like, yeah, screw this. I'm going to learn how to play guitar, which I'm doing now. All right. So, and you can always check out our website, clientfirststrategy.com, and all of my contact information is there. So the deal is, stocks came in a little bit today. So far, it's been an okay year. Followed, and typically a good year like last year, statistically, we should have another good year. But a lot of the positivity for stocks right now is based on the Fed cutting rates. If the Fed cuts rates, interest rates come down, it means that stock valuations could rise. It means bonds could go up in value and interest rates could come down. But we're just getting economic statistics that are showing strength. I'm not saying I want negative statistics. I'm just saying I want statistics that are maybe not as strong as they were, but strong GDP figures, retail sales, consumer sentiment is running high still. Employment figures continue to be pretty good. And factory construction, I think factory construction right now is the highest it's ever been. And there's a ton of money being spent on semiconductor chip construction and infrastructure. It's really hard to see a weakening economy. And the problem is we might not see inflation come down more. The issue is we could actually see inflation go back up. That is a situation that the Federal Reserve desperately wants to avoid. They would rather see a mild recession than cut rates too soon and see inflation spike again, because that would cause an even worse recession. So I think if that is the case, stocks may be a little too ahead of themselves. But we have to take into consideration that the large cap tech stocks like Facebook, which had this blowout earnings number on Thursday after the close, those are the important ones. You could tell me about a stock like UPS or a John Deere. Their earnings could come in, for example. I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying if they are pretty significant companies in the economy. But they're not the biggest of the big. In fact, of the top 10 biggest companies that are in the S&P 500, 8 of the top 10 are technology. I think number 9 is Berkshire Hathaway. That's Warren Buffett's company. And number 10 is United Healthcare. But 1 through 8 are technology. And technology represents about 34% of the S&P 500 tech stocks. That's the highest it's ever been. Oh, by the way, you can't invest directly into an index, but you could invest in a security that tracks or mimics an index. So if we see a correction in tech, it's going to hurt a lot for everybody because everybody's so exposed to these stocks. And every time I pick up a new client, fortunately, right? One of the first things they call me about is they want to buy NVIDIA. I don't blame you. And I think for a new client, that could be good. But I could also tell you for existing clients that have huge gains on NVIDIA, and now NVIDIA represents, in some cases, over 10% of a stock portfolio for a client, I have to cut it back. And I'm not making the decision on cutting it back because I think NVIDIA can't go up anymore. I cut back because it's being prudent. I understand the risk profile of my clients. I understand that when you get together with a client 15, 20 years ago, you don't realize that they've aged, you've aged. Their time horizon is shorter to the time when they start to need to convert their money from active income to passive income, for example. So personal finance is really the dictator. Is that the right word? Is that the right way to use it? Personal finance dictates the way that I would sell an investment. It's not because I think it's going to go down. Now, there are times when a stock goes up very quickly. And to me, it's not so much how much a stock goes up, but how quickly it goes up. That does encourage me to say, hey, maybe I should take a little off the table. That's okay. But by and large, it's based on people's personal finance. Question was asked about common law marriage. I don't know the common law marriage rules and laws of every state, but the person who asked me this is a New Yorker. So I just want to address it. Okay. New York does not recommend common law marriage. It doesn't matter how long a couple cohabitates in the same domicile in the state of New York. They are not legally married. The only way to be married is to apply and get a marriage license and have a ceremony. Doesn't have to be a glorious ceremony, but some kind of ceremony by someone who is permitted to perform the ceremony, whether it be justice of the peace, clergy, or somebody, reverend, someone who can do it. And not everybody can do that. So if there's no common law marriage. Now, there is something in the state of New York called domestic partnership, and those are recognized. But again, it doesn't happen automatically. You have to get what's called a certificate of domestic partnership. Certain rules have to be met. You don't just get it because you live together. There has to be certain things that each person in the couple is doing. Of course, you have to not be married. You have to be not legally married to someone else. And you cannot be a relative, or it's defined as a relative in the state of New York. I think in New York, you could marry a third cousin, but not a second cousin. I'm not really sure how that works. And it's not really something I want to think about either. But aside from that, we are not a common law state here in New York. As far as beneficiaries go for an IRA, you do not have to, as far as I know, you don't have to make your spouse your IRA beneficiary. I know that in the paperwork that my clients have to sign, the spouse has to sign a form that they acknowledge and giving consent to not being a beneficiary of in a married person, in a married person's IRA beneficiary designation form. So I just want to answer those questions, and I'll be talking more about these things, unfortunately. But, being in my 50s, I see an awful lot of divorcees and a lot of widows and widowers who begin to cohabitate with somebody new. And you should know the rules. And if you are going to shack up with someone, it really behooves you to seek legal representation before you make that move, before you give up your apartment lease and move into someone else's apartment. You really should have legal representation and make sure you know what you're getting into. So I wanted to share that with you, and I think that is really good personal finance advice. But seek legal representation, as I am not a lawyer. All right. I think that covers it for today. Have yourselves a lovely evening, and I will be back tomorrow. Thank you very much.